This side, Sneha from Mass Font Science first year, and I would be representing my PPT presentation on what is voting behavior, and critically examine the pattern of voting behavior in US election 2024. We're starting with the introduction part, that is, what does the voting means? So voting is one of the most commonly used terms in contemporary age of democratic politics. In democratic system, and their number is quite large and even increasing, each adult citizen uses voting as a means for expressing his approval or disapproval of government decisions, policies, and programs of various political parties and the qualities of the candidates who are engaged in the struggle to gain the status of being the representative of the people. Now, I would be further moving towards what is voting behavior? So, in the words of Samuel, where he described voting behavior in his article "Theory: A Method in Voting Behavior Research," where he writes, the term is not new, but it has been used of late to describe certain area of study and type of political phenomenon which previously had either not been conceived or were considered irrelevant. Rather on, there are various definitions given by other scholars also, like Plano and Riggs. He says it is a field of study concerned with the ways in which people tend to vote in public election and the reason why they vote as they do. Nowadays, it has become broader term which involves study of human political behavior in context of voting in elections. There are various significances of voting behavior as it helps in comprehending the process of political socialization. It enables to throw light as to how far the electoral politics continue or break with the past. It emphasizes the real impact of the revolutionary ballot box. Not only this, but it also helps in examining the internalization of democracy as a value among the elites as well as masses. It means it throw light on a broader spectrum rather than throwing light on a particular small group. Now we will look over a comparative insight on the determinants of voting behavior over the two countries, India and US. However, the two are the largest democracy in the world, and the voting behavior and electoral outcomes reflect their political, social, and historical context. However, there are differences in the determinants of the both country. Where the countries in India, the determinants are like caste, region, religion, but on other hand, in US, the factors are like economic. It's not caste, religion, economic conditions, but it's about. However, there is a somewhat similarity that is economic performance, but there are other differences that is the media effects, party loyalty, and all. Now, moving further, we will critically examine the pattern of US election. The pattern of voting behavior in 2024 US presidential election revealed both continuity and the significant shifts in American politics. The first thing I would like to mention here is the persistence of political polarization, means the party loyalty has been seen there. There has been a deep polarization of the electoral party loyalty which remained exceptionally high. Around 95% of the Republicans voted for Trump, and a similar proportion of Democrats voted for Harris, whereas independent voters were almost evenly divided, unlike 2020. What the critical part of this is that this polarization weakens the deliberative democracy. Rather than the second point, which I will throw light on, that the black voters, that is African voters, they moved to Trump, but they remain overwhelmingly Democratic. If we will look over the data that in 2024 and in 2020 elections, that is 8% voted in 2020 versus 15% last year for him. For him, here I mean to say for Trump. Still, 83% black voters backed Harris. This reflects the grouping diversity of opinion within them and dissatisfaction among younger voters regarding economic opportunities. The other things are gender gap and youth voting. Next thing is the gender gap. that can be seen that Trump has gained most vote of the men. That is, and also under the age group of 50, the men who were under the age group of 50 had voted for Trump. Rather than if we will look over the women's voting women voting contribution, then women prefer Harris. However, Harris performed less strongly among women than previous Democratic candidate Joe Biden in 2020. If we will look over the reasons, then the reasons quite maybe there is a various different reasons are there, like but the identity politics alone proved insufficient for Democrats. Material concern overrode symbolic representation, even with the possibility of electing the first female president. The other thing is the voting among the younger generation, that is also called Gen Z. So if we look over the voting contribution of Gen Z, then they had voted more towards the Trump, because if we will see the traditional Democratic young voters shifted noticeably towards Republicans. Young voters have moved sharply towards Trump because the younger voters are highly and but the thing is that they are more likely to favor Trump. Why? Because of his policies and all. The other thing, the critical part of this scheme, that is Gen Z is not ideologically fixed. The voters are highly issue sensitive and economically pragmatic, challenging exceptions. The democratic graphic change automatically benefits Democrats. Not only this, now, further, I would be moving toward major demographic realignment. The election shows a substantial Republican gain among Hispanic voters. Hispanic voters were nearly evenly split, unlike earlier elections where Democrats enjoyed clear dominance. However, this undermined the long-standing assumption that minority voters from a permanently Democratic coalition. Ethnicity alone is no longer a reliable prediction of partisan loyalty that was to be understood. Overall it shows that the 2024 US election, it revealed a long-term transformation in American voting behavior, as because it includes economic insecurity outweighed many identity ways appeals. Not only these, political polarizations and cultural divisions deepened the further. Minority voters became more politically heterogeneous. The election demonstrated that American politics is undergoing a realignment where education, class, geography, and cultural identity matter as much as or more than traditional racial and partisan loyalties. Not only this, a simple Republican or Democratic victory, the 2024 election reflected a broader crisis of representation, economic anxiety, and distrust in institutions that continue to reshape US democracy. Thank you.